pilot!
We've got one!
You! What about that ship?
That one's garbage! The garbage will do.
Ken Spriggs here with part 10 of my Millennium Falcon build and diorama. Lots and lots of progress on this video. Just about complete. I may very well wrap it up on this video, but we'll see how that goes. Finishing up the diorama, also work on the TIE fighters, the weathering on the AT-AT walker, and then I started doing the weathering on the final weathering on the Falcon as well. All right, so let me go ahead and show you the progress that I've made here. So I'm working on the TIE fighters, the first order TIE fighters. It's the double set that you can get from Bandai. Sorry, it's upside down. I went ahead and put a coating of Tamiya chrome silver over the entire thing, because the parts that I paint darker, I'm gonna possibly chip away some or wear away some, so it looks like it's battle damaged. There's metal underneath. And then I'm going to use, instead of black, I'm going to use gunmetal. Saw some other videos, another video out there on YouTube, bashing kits. He's really good with the Star Wars kits, and that's what he used, and it looked really cool in his videos. So it'll give it that metallic dark look. And he ended up painting it on, because to mask off each of these 6 panels on both sides, that's 24 per ship. So we're looking at 48 different maskings. So he just took a brush and painted the outsides of these, and then I can take these off and paint the rest. So I'll probably do the same. I'm going to experiment with a little bit. I have used the gunmetal before from Tamiya. I really like it. I'm using it on the Falcon, on the gunner's chair, and it goes on really smooth, so brushing will probably be fine for that. Alright, so I got both of these painted silver. I just have to get some of the gunmetal on there, and then I'll start getting these detailed. Alright, so I tried the gunmetal on the chrome silver, and it wasn't enough of a difference. It was a little too light, so I didn't want to do just plain flat black, so I came up with a mixture of about half and half of the gunmetal and the flat black. You can see that there. It's kind of drying right now, but it's a nice difference. It's not quite black, just flat black. It has a bit of a metallic to it, so I think it'll show up better when I airbrush it onto the main body of the kit, and then this will stand out as well with the silver. You can see the difference there. So it's kind of hard to tell from this bottle, but it does. You can see kind of there. It has a bit of a shimmery metallic to it. It's kind of metallic black. So I think you can get metallic black as well from Tamiya, but I already had some gunmetal, so I just mixed it with it. Alright, so it is easier to paint this by hand. It is kind of a little tedious process, but at the same time it would be a lot more tedious to try to mask off all of those panels and then paint them. And it came out pretty well. It's a delicate job, but it's not bad, and I'm not too concerned if it's not perfect. So but that looks good. You can see the difference between the black metallic and the silver. Alright, so let me get working on the rest of these, and then we'll start, we'll get airbrushed, get some of this airbrushed onto the main body as well. Alright. Okay, so I got some more progress on the TIE fighters. I did an airbrush coating of the mixture that I made of the gunmetal and flat black, and it came out kind of cool. it's not quite shiny metallic, but it's not quite flat. It has that rough metal looking finish on there, so I kind of like that. I think that's going to look pretty cool. And it's darker, it's almost black. I've also started painting this one here. I put some of the chrome silver back on the engine parts. Once that dries, I'm going to put some clear red in there to give it kind of that red engine look on it. And I still have to put that side piece on there, which is going to be red as well on this particular one. And on the other one, I just painted the chrome silver on the back of that engine. And the same thing, I want to put some red inside of there, maybe some clear red to give that a kind of the cool engine look. And I took the front cockpit windows off and left them silver. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give them a some kind of a clear over top of the silver to give it a look like there's glass there and it's glossy. So we'll see how that's going to work. And did some more on the tie wings, painting that metal around it, and it looks pretty good. Doing it by hand, there's a few rough spots, but it's not a big deal. I don't want these to look that perfect anyway. They'll be pretty cool. Alright, so I got 2 of those completed, and I also got an airbrush on the top pieces that go inside. The same thing, they have that glossy, but it's kind of a grungy looking gloss. Metallic, I mean. So that's kind of cool. I do like that color. So once I'm done with the other 2 wing sections, I'll be ready to get those on the inside of those, and then attached onto the fighters. So they're coming along pretty well. What I'll probably end up doing on both of them is using that hole in the bottom. Instead of putting in the gun at the bottom, I'll just use that hole for a piece of rod to suspend it off the ground, off of the diorama. Once I get an angle for how I want that to be, and that'll give me a good connection point that I can put a rod inside of that, something small. All right, so let me let those dry a bit, and then I'll work on those some more, and I'll probably get these done here shortly. All right, so I got some more work done on the first order TIE fighters. The basic one I have almost complete, except for the cockpit window, which I'm working on. I have the outer panels painted inside and out. And I'm not doing a whole lot of detailing on this one, but I do have some silver on the back for the engine and a little bit of the clear red inside of that. All right. And right now I'm just working on the cockpit. I'm doing that for both of them. And I tried to get some screen grabs from the battle on Jakku, and it's really hard to see, but it looks like they're basically just silver with maybe some tinted windows. So after the chrome silver on top, I used some Tamiya smoke and just dabbed it into those little recesses carefully with a brush. So letting that dry right now. Once that's dry, I'll probably take a dry brush of some the chrome silver and just kind of highlight those ribs again on the outside. So, and that'll be about it. Same with the other one. Okay, yeah, so that's drying. And the main one that I got detailing on is the first order one here. A little bit of dust on there. But I have the some silver and some of the gloss red over the silver for that back. I'm not sure if that's a window or an engine. I think it's a window for the gunner. And the little engine's right there next to it, some red. I used a flat red on those side panels. I didn't want to go with a gloss because I I think it would have clashed a little bit with the metal, but I'll probably do a little bit of weathering, dry brushing on those. A little bit of silver on the antenna up there at the top, and then likewise, once I have that cockpit window done, I'll put that on there. I have these side panels painted, so at this point all I have to do is finish the ribbing on the side foils, and then I'll be ready to put those together. Alright, and then get them onto the diorama. Okay, so here are my completed first order TIE fighters, the regular version and the Special Forces with separate red panels and those little black rings on the side. I really enjoyed building these. The main challenge was painting all of these different rib sections on the outer panels, which turned out really well, I think, and I like how they did. I really like that combination too of the silver, my homemade metallic black, and the red. I think that looks really cool right there. That's pretty neat. And even the cockpit turned out pretty well. Gives it a bit of a look like it's a window, but there's obviously no cockpit, so that's fine. And then the standard version looks good as well. And the back red engine there. Alright, so these are both completed. I'm just letting them dry a bit. I had to glue the one side panel on this one. It was still too loose. And now I just have to come up with a brass or rod or tube to get these to be extended above my diorama. So that'll be the next thing that I'm going to start working on here. I do want to try to keep the rod fairly invisible, but I want these to be solid enough so they're not bouncing on it. So I have a few different ones I can test to get that on there. So, all right, but I'm really pleased with how these turned out, especially this one here. I think that's pretty cool. I really like that red on there with the different colors. So, all right, and how that metallic black turned out, that it's dark, but it's also obviously very metallic, which I like too. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's see what we can do as far as getting these attached to my Jakku diorama. Okay, so I've attached the TIE fighters onto the diorama. As you can see, I have some thin brass tubing holding them in place, and I painted it with the sand color. Once that dries, I'll try to put on some of the scenic glue and put on some of the sand on it as well to hide them a little better. These may not be the final angles that I have. They're able to be positioned. They're not permanently glued in place. Because they're so light, I just poked a hole through the sand and styrofoam and just stuck them in and positioned it. So they'll be removable. So just like I can remove the Millennium Falcon from its connections. So the whole rod comes out actually. And I tried to position them. I wanted to keep some nice shots of the special order one with the cool red on it there, as you can see in the back. So you can see that pretty easily. And you can also see the front of it in the cockpit window, and the same with the other one, the standard one. All right. Okay, so those are completed and ready to go. I'm going to give you some more shots of this from different angles as well. I think that turned out really cool. All right, so there's the top. You can see they're coming in to blast the Falcon as it tries to escape. And the poor AT-AT walker collapsed in the back there, half buried in sand. I'll come around the back here. Alright, and there's another angle. That's pretty cool. Alright, so that's really coming along really great. So right now, getting really close to completion of this build. possibly wrap it up in this video. As far as the diorama, I just have to paint the rocks. And then once I get that painted and kind of get the whole image, I'll decide whether or not I want to put a little bit of greenery around them, that sort of thing. Probably won't do any more major rocks because I want this to be just sand, which is kind of how it looks in the movie. Some more weathering on the AT-AT and some little bits of debris around it. I'm going to put on there with some of the rust and that sort of thing. And then just finish the weathering of the Falcon. At this point, I've only completed the one panel because I mainly focused on the diorama right now. I was trying that a bit and it worked out pretty well. So the next thing I'm going to do is start finishing up the weathering on the Falcon on top and bottom with the oils as I showed previously. And then should be pretty much ready to wrap this up and get that completed. So really happy with that. I think that looks really cool. I love all the components of it. The Falcon, of course, which is the main build. I really like how the AT-AT turned out with the rusting on it. And I think that'll look even more cool when I get some rust powders in around, some debris around it and that sort of thing. Even the TIE fighters are pretty neat. I really like those a lot with the colors that I came up with. The metallic black on both of those. So those are kind of neat. All right, so let me go ahead and work on some more of the weathering and the rocks, and then we'll see if we can get this all completed. Here's some more weathering of the AT-AT. I have some little rusted pieces around it, and I use some weathering powder, medium rust, to just kind of fleck it on with a brush around it. Okay, so I'm letting that dry a bit. And I put some of the scenic cement over it as well in little pieces. I started painting the rocks with some flat earth as a dark bottom base coat, especially in little crevices, so that when I put some lighter colors over top of it, like some sand and even some of the rust, it'll keep the dark in the crevices. So, all right. So I've gone back to weathering the Falcon, and I got most of the top nearly completed. I still have a little bit more touching up to do, but you can see I have a lot of the darker wash, the different rusts on there as well. Alright, so I'm just letting that dry a bit, and once again I'm using the oils, mostly the rusts right now, the Abtalung 502s. So I'm using the light and dark rust, as you can see. Before that I used the Starship Filth, and I watered it down, well, thinned it out quite a bit with the odorless thinner, and washed it over top of the whole thing, all the different panels, and let that dry in pretty good so it filled those crevices. Right now I'm adding some rust, as you can see right there, and I'll let that dry a bit and see how I like it. Alright, and then we'll go back to a little bit of the darker streaks, maybe some of the engine grease. I still have to work on those little compartments there in the mandibles to make those look like the backs with all the different metallics. Those I use a lot of powders, but also the oils too. Alright. I also painted Ray and put her in the cockpit. And I put little BB-8 in the passenger seat. I know he doesn't ride in the seat, but I wanted you to be able to see him, and you can't really see him if he's back in the cockpit, so it's hard to see him right there, but there he is in the seat. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry a bit. I still have to do the bottom. As you can see, it looks almost white by comparison. What a big difference. So, and then the sides, the intricate detail along the sides. So, alright, so I'm making some progress here. That's looking decidedly nice and weathered and grungy. Working a bit more on the engines. I just want kind of the hint of those lines coming back from the engines. I don't want them to be really dark. So at first they were a little too dark, so I lightened them up a bit. So I think that's how I want it to look. It looks pretty cool. It stands out that that's a little dirtier than the rest of the ship, but not just really, really dark. So, okay. Alright, so let me do a little more on this after this dries, and then start working on the bottom a bit. So here are the engine grills, the photo etch put onto the back of it. As I showed in the previous still, I painted them on the photo etch sheet and then snipped them off. And they're actually two pieces, if you can see it there or not, but you have the grills and then you have that ring inside of there that have just a little bit of detail on them. So I used a German gray on the grills, and I used some German gray initially on the outer rings, and then I dry brushed them with a little bit of silver, chrome silver, and some gunmetal, bring out a little more detail in them. So, all right, right now I have them glued into there, and I'm letting them dry. I probably have to put a little more of the black powder along the edge of these because some of that got rubbed off while I was applying those. So, okay. Alright, those look really cool. And you can actually see through them and see the little fans inside, which is really awesome. So I really like those. That's a great touch over the kit part. Alright, so the top weathering is dried. It's just a little too reddish or orangish for my taste. I'm probably going to tone it down just a little bit with a lightly damp brush with some thinner on it, and kind of fade some more of that out of there, and then we'll see where we can go from there. And then I'll start working on the bottom, which looks very starkly almost white by comparison, although it is gray. But look at that, what a big difference between that and that. That's quite a difference. All right, but so I'll probably just tone that down a bit, maybe put a little more of the gray shading on it, but other than that, it's looking pretty good. Should be just about done with the top and ready to start finishing up the bottom as well. All right. Okay, so I wanted to show another shot. I did tone down some of those rust colors and fade them in a little better. So I kind of like that look. I think it looks pretty cool. And you still see some of the gloss on the red there because I put some extra rust colors on top of that. Once this is all complete, I'm going to put a flat coat over the whole thing to dull everything down to the same image so that it all matches together. But that's kind of looking the way I want it to be right now, where you see a lot of that detail when it's looking pretty dingy and little streaks here and there. It definitely looks dirty and lived in, but overall it still kind of gives that image of it being gray, even though it's really kind of faded as opposed to that, of course. All right, so I'm going to let that top finish drying. I think that's kind of where I want it to be for now. And I'm going to work a little bit more on the rocks for the diorama, and then start working on the bottom. All right. So I've done some more weathering on the resin rocks, and after the initial coat of the flat earth, I did a little bit with the hull red to give it kind of the rust color, and I then dry brushed on some of the sand acrylic as well. Okay, there we go. So those looking pretty cool. And so once those dry, I'll probably use some weathering powders. I have some of the Tamiya Masters, and I have some that are actually sand and earth and that kind of thing. So, okay. All right, so a little bit more on those, and then the diorama part will be complete. And then I'm not sure if I'm going to use any greenery at all. Probably not, because of the scale. It's a very large scale, so mostly you would just see sand and rocks, that kind of thing. So I think putting some little green or bushes would make it look like the wrong scale. All right, so here's another shot of my weathered Falcon on the top. It's pretty much completed. It's turned out pretty cool. The engine grills, you can see through and see the little fans. Kind of cool. Battle damage. I still have to put on the radar dish, the top gun, and finish up little parts like the little mandible sections right there. But that's looking pretty cool. And there's the Special Forces TIE Fighter, First Order TIE Fighter, looking pretty cool, chasing it. All right, so set this down for a second. All right, so I'm not going to complete it this video, but I'm very close. So I'm going to wrap up this video because it's running into the close to 30 minutes. So I will wrap this up on the next video. I just have to finish the weathering on the bottom of the Falcon, maybe a few more tweaks on the diorama just to get it just right. But I'm ready to go ahead and do the finale here. Probably have the finale posted here in just a few days. I don't have a lot more work to do, and then complete this build. So the next video I'll be going over just the various things I used to make this diorama and this kit, the aftermarket parts, the different kits that I used, the materials, the paints, that kind of thing, and then showing off the finale, which is going to look pretty awesome. So with all the parts, the Falcon, the TIE Fighters, the battle damaged or the rusted out AT-AT Walker, the diorama, the lights on the Falcon. So so let me just go ahead and wrap up this video for this week, and tune in again, like I said, in probably just a few days, and I'll have the finale and we'll see the completed product. All right, thanks a lot, and thanks to all my subscribers.